The farmhouse sits at the end of a long gravel driveway, swallowed on all sides by a blizzard that has been building for 2 days. Inside the dark living room, barely visible through the frost-edged glass, a young man stands frozen at the window, face obscured, body rigid, not moving. He is looking at something. Outside, at the absolute edge of the motion sensor light's reach, where the amber cone gives way to total darkness and blowing snow, a second figure stands in the storm. No coat. Completely still. Facing the house. There is no explanation for why he is there. There is no explanation for why he chose this house, this driveway, this window to stand outside of in the middle of the night during a blizzard cold enough to kill. He is simply there, at the boundary between light and dark, between the yard and the void, standing with the patience of someone who has been waiting for a very long time and is fully prepared to keep waiting. The man at the window does not move either. Both of them hold their positions in the storm, separated by maybe 50 feet of open snow and whatever it is that keeps most people from doing what this man is doing, standing in someone else's yard in the dark with no coat on, in weather like this, for reasons nobody ever found out. This is the image Jake carries. This is the moment that never fully left him. A man in the snow, at the edge of the light, and the particular quality of stillness that told him, without any doubt, that this was not something he was ever going to be able to explain. This happened 3 winters ago, at a rental farmhouse about 20 minutes outside of town, the kind of place with a long gravel driveway and no real neighbors to speak of. Jake was 25, working nights at a warehouse, and most evenings it was just him coming home around 11 while his girlfriend was already asleep upstairs. That January, a storm had been building for 2 straight days. By the time he pulled in, it was already coming down sideways, 6 inches on the ground and more falling fast. He was glad he'd made it home before the roads got worse. He walked that long driveway toward the farmhouse, the house small and off-center at the far end, a single interior window glowing faint amber against all that dark. Every other window was black. The tree line on both sides of the driveway had already blurred into gray shapes in the haze, and the world beyond the property had effectively ceased to exist. He didn't know yet that something had already been at the house before him. He didn't know about the scraping sound that would come later, or the footsteps, or the motion light clicking on and revealing something that shouldn't have been there. All he knew was that he was home, the storm was getting worse, and the single lit window at the end of the driveway was warm and familiar, and everything out here in the dark was not. He walked toward it. He went inside. And the night that was waiting for him inside the house began to unspool, slowly at first, the way the worst nights always do, quietly, and without warning. He'd made some food, watched some TV, nothing on really, just noise in the background while the wind picked up outside. Around midnight he heard something on the porch. Not a knock. A scrape. Like something being dragged slowly across the wood. He paused the TV and listened. Nothing for a while. He told himself it was a branch, or the wind knocking over the trash cans by the side door. They had raccoons out there before. He turned the TV back on and told himself he was being paranoid, that everything sounds worse when it's that quiet and that white outside. About 20 minutes later it happened again, longer this time, 10 straight seconds of that same dragging sound along the porch boards directly beneath the living room window. He turned the TV off completely. And now he sat like this, very still on the edge of the couch, body angled toward the dark window, the storm pressing white against the glass from outside. The dog was curled under the coffee table, unbothered, head down, not lifting it. He told himself that meant something. He told himself that if it were really something, the dog would react. Animals know. But the sound had been real both times, and the silence between them had a texture to it now, a weight that hadn't been there before. The lamp in the corner threw a hard cone of amber that didn't reach the window and didn't reach much of anything useful. He sat in the near dark and listened to the wind work at the siding. And then he heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, crunching through the snow from the porch toward the side of the house. He got up and looked out the window, but the storm was so heavy he couldn't see more than a few feet past the porch light. Just white, moving sideways in the wind. He told himself it could be a deer. They got deer in the yard all the time. But deer don't walk like that, evenly spaced, deliberate, like someone counting their steps. He didn't call anyone yet. It was almost 1 a.m, the roads were locked up, and what was he going to say that he'd heard footsteps in a snowstorm? He stood by the window with the lights off for nearly 20 minutes, watching, waiting, nothing happening. Long enough that he almost convinced himself he'd imagined the whole thing. Then the motion light over the side door clicked on. It stayed on for the full 90 seconds those lights stay on, and then clicked off. He watched the spot where it had been illuminated for a long time after, waiting for it to trigger again. For almost 40 minutes, it didn't. He started to relax slightly. Picked up his phone to text a friend about it, half joking. He was in the middle of typing when the light clicked on again. And this is what he saw, framed through the living room window, at the absolute outer edge of that amber cone of light, a man. Standing completely still in the blizzard. No coat. 15 feet from the side door. Facing the house. Not moving. Jake stood at the dark window and looked at him, and the man stood in the storm and faced the house, and for a few seconds that felt much longer than that, neither of them did anything at all. Jake yelled for his girlfriend and grabbed his phone, hand shaking so badly he misdialed 911 twice before getting through. While he was on the line, he watched the man start walking, not toward the door, toward the driveway, slow and unhurried, like someone with somewhere to be. By the time the dispatcher had the address, the motion light had clicked off. When it triggered back on, the yard was empty. The state police took nearly 40 minutes to arrive because of the storm, and those 40 minutes were the longest Jake had ever sat through. His girlfriend had come downstairs to find him already on the phone, and he tried to explain it as calmly as he could, but there was nothing calm about any of it. They sat together in the kitchen under a single bare overhead bulb, the light hard and isolating, pointing straight down at the table between them, with the dog pressed against the floor between their feet, and the blizzard pushing white against every dark window that lined the kitchen walls. She asked him questions he didn't have answers to. He watched the windows. She watched the windows. The dog stayed between them and didn't lift its head. Outside, the storm kept going, indifferent to all of it, filling in whatever traces were left in the yard while they sat under that one small light and waited for the sound of a car in the driveway, for headlights to cut through the dark, for something to arrive from the outside world and confirm that the world was still out there and still reachable. Eventually, it did. It just took longer than it should have. When the state police walked the property with flashlights, they found exactly what the night had left behind. A trail of footprints beginning at the tree line at the edge of the yard, tracking along the porch, curving around to the side door, and then crossing back out across the open snowfield to the road shoulder where the trail simply stopped. No continuation on the other side. No evidence of where he went after. Just prints that walked out of the trees, circled a house, and ended at the shoulder of a road as if the person who made them had stepped into a waiting vehicle and ceased to exist. The officers swept their flashlight beams low across the surface of the snow, the twin cones picking out every compressed detail, the depth, the spacing, the even and unhurried stride all the way to the end. No coat, no gloves, temperatures well below freezing, and a storm that had already dumped more than half a foot of snow. The prints were still sharp-edged. Recent. The officers didn't find anyone matching the description in the area. There had been no other reports that night. Nothing was missing from the property, nothing damaged. One came back the next morning to ask about cameras. They didn't have any. Patrols would increase in the area for a while, he said. That was it. No arrest. Nothing in the local news. Jake and his girlfriend moved out that spring, months before their lease was up. He told the landlord it was for a job. That wasn't really true. He still gets uneasy during heavy snow, especially at night, especially when it's quiet enough to hear things you probably shouldn't be able to hear. A narrow wooden staircase climbs the side of a detached garage, exposed to the open air, exposed to the storm. At the top, a single door, one way in, one way out. The porch light above it throws a hard amber cone over the top 2 steps and nothing else. Below that, the staircase descends into blizzard dark, the lower half swallowed completely by shadow and blowing snow. And halfway up, caught at the absolute edge of the light's reach, boots on the steps. The lower half of a figure, completely still, the rest of the body lost to darkness, and the upper frame. Not moving. Not knocking. Not announcing themselves in any way. Just standing there on someone else's staircase in the middle of the night during a blizzard, in a posture of waiting so practiced and so patient that it suggests they have been there for a while already. The woman who lives at the top of these stairs does not know they are here yet. She is inside, going about the ordinary business of a Thursday evening, laundry and a Netflix show she isn't really paying attention to. She has already missed one call from a number she didn't recognize. In a few minutes she will miss another, and then answer the third, and hear only silence on the other end before the line goes dead. And then, about 45 minutes after that, she will hear a single knock at the gate at the bottom of these stairs, and the night will shift into something she will not fully recover from for a very long time. Marissa had been living alone for less than a year, her first time on her own, in a small rental unit above a detached garage behind someone else's house. The arrangement was a little unusual, but it worked for her. She had her own entrance around the back, up the exterior staircase. It was quiet out there, mostly older houses on big lots, the kind of neighborhood where you don't hear much after dark. There'd been a storm warning issued all week, on and off snow that never really let up, and by that Thursday night in February there was already close to a foot on the ground with more coming. She was in for the evening, had ordered food before the roads got bad, and was doing normal things, some laundry, a Netflix show she wasn't really following. The apartment was small and close, the window beside the couch showing nothing but snow moving against dark glass. Around 10 o'clock, her phone buzzed. A number she didn't recognize, local area code, no name. She let it go to voicemail. No message. She told herself it was a scam call, a wrong number, the kind of thing that happens all the time, and put the phone back down. 20 minutes later, the same number called again. This time she answered. Said hello twice. And there was nothing on the other end, not background noise she could make out, not breathing, just 5 or 6 seconds of open silence, and then the line went dead. She set the phone on the kitchen counter. She told herself it was a bad connection. She almost believed it. About 45 minutes after the second call, she heard it, a single knock on the wooden gate at the bottom of the exterior staircase. She froze where she was and listened. No second knock followed. She went to the window and pressed herself close to the glass, face nearly against the condensation on the pane, one hand braced on the frame, and looked down. The porch light above her door threw its hard amber cone over the top 2 steps and a small patch of snow below the landing. Below that, the base of the staircase and the gate were completely swallowed by blizzard dark. She could see nothing at the gate. No shape, no movement, no sign of anything that had any reason to be there. She stood at that window for a long moment, face close to the glass, the cold of it pressing back against her palm. She told herself it was a branch falling off the tree near the fence. It had happened before during other storms, and the sound it made wasn't so different from a knock if you were already listening for something. She didn't call the homeowners. It was late, she didn't want to bother them over what was probably nothing, and some part of her was already embarrassed at how quickly her heart had climbed into her throat over a single sound. So she sat on her couch with the TV off and waited, listening to the wind in the building and the particular quality of quiet that descends when a storm is heavy and the neighborhood has gone to sleep. She waited for maybe 15 minutes. And then the stairs began to creak. About 45 minutes after the second call, she heard a single knock on the wooden gate at the bottom of the exterior staircase. She froze where she was and listened. No second knock followed. She went to the window and pressed herself close to the glass, face nearly against the condensation on the pane, one hand braced on the frame, and looked down. The porch light above her door threw its hard amber cone over the top 2 steps and a small patch of snow below the landing. Below that, the base of the staircase and the gate were completely swallowed by blizzard dark. She could see nothing at the gate. No shape, no movement, no sign of anything that had any reason to be there. She stood at that window for a long moment, face close to the glass, the cold of it pressing back against her palm. She told herself it was a branch falling off the tree near the fence. It had happened before during other storms, and the sound it made wasn't so different from a knock if you were already listening for something. She didn't call the homeowners. It was late, she didn't want to bother them over what was probably nothing, and some part of her was already embarrassed at how quickly her heart had climbed into her throat over a single sound. So she sat on her couch with the TV off and waited, listening to the wind in the building and the particular quality of quiet that descends when a storm is heavy and the neighborhood has gone to sleep. She waited for maybe 15 minutes. And then the stairs began to creak. Not knocked. Tried it. The old lever handle turned slowly, caught on the deadbolt, and held. The door did not open. The security chain held taut at the edge of the frame. She heard the specific sound the mechanism made, a sound she would not forget, and then a pause of a few seconds, and then the handle turned again. Slowly, the same way, testing. Whoever was on the other side of that door had climbed the stairs in the middle of a blizzard in the middle of the night without knocking, without calling ahead, without announcing themselves in any way, and now they were testing her lock. Twice. With the patience of someone who had expected it to open. Marissa called 911 from her bedroom floor, whispering the address into the phone, back pressed against the dresser she had dragged in front of the door. And while she was on the line, she heard the person on the other side go completely still. Like they had heard her voice through the wood. A few seconds of that stillness, the kind that has a quality of decision in it, and then the footsteps started again, fast this time, going back down the stairs and into the storm. The dispatcher stayed on the line with her until the deputies arrived 25 minutes later. She sat on the bedroom floor the whole time, back against the dresser, phone pressed to her ear, and stared at that door handle in the dim amber light bleeding from outside, the handle that had moved, the door that had held, the chain that had been the only thing between whatever was on that landing and the inside of where she lived. When the deputies arrived and traced the scene, they followed the footprints from the base of the staircase around the side of the garage, through a gap in the fence, and out across the open field behind the property, where the trail softened under fresh falling snow and the final prints faded before disappearing entirely into unbroken white. They noted, carefully, what was absent. There were no incoming prints. No trail approaching the gate from the street, no path through the yard from any direction that would suggest someone who had walked up to the staircase from somewhere. Only prints departing from it, as if whoever had been standing at the base of those stairs had been there long enough, and still enough, that the snow had already buried the evidence of their arrival. The gap in the fence was clear in their flashlight beams. Beyond it, open field, and the fading trail curving into nothing. No car seen on the street that night. No footage from the homeowners, their doorbell camera faced the wrong direction entirely. The prepaid number that had called twice came back to no name, no other reports attached. Nobody in the neighborhood had seen anything. Marissa broke her lease early and took the financial hit because she could not make herself go back up those stairs at night after that. The deputies told her it was probably someone testing houses during the storm, figuring the wind would cover most of the noise. Maybe that's all it was. She has spent a long time trying to make herself believe it. The lake property is completely dark. Every guest cabin unlit, every window black, The main lodge, a large silent mass in the distance, its silhouette blurred at the edges by heavy snowfall, reduced by the blizzard to a shapeless shadow sitting at the far end of an open, snow-buried yard. Nothing moves. Nothing has any reason to move. The season ended months ago. The last guests left in the fall, and the only person on this entire property is the caretaker in his cottage, that single dim amber window glowing far to the right, tiny against everything surrounding it. And yet, cutting across the open snow-covered yard in a straight, deliberate line, coming from the direction of the lodge, aimed directly toward the camera, toward wherever the caretaker is standing when he finally looks, a single set of fresh footprints. Deep. Sharp-edged. Not yet blurred by the falling snow, which means they are recent. No figure anywhere in frame. Whoever made these tracks is already gone from this particular spot, already somewhere else on the property. The tracks don't curve randomly the way an animal's would. They run in a straight line with the kind of purpose that implies a destination, aimed at the cottage, at that one small lit window, at the only inhabited building on a property that was supposed to be completely empty. They cut toward the camera and then curve off frame into darkness, and whatever made them is somewhere in that darkness right now, moving with the same unhurried, deliberate pace that the depth and spacing of each print suggests. Tyler had taken the caretaker job the previous October, rent-free housing in the cottage through April in exchange for keeping an eye on the property over the winter. The main lodge, the guest cabins, all empty for the season. The nearest town was almost 30 minutes out, and once the snow really started, the private road in was slow enough that most people didn't bother. He hadn't minded the isolation. By late December he'd settled into a routine, checking the buildings every couple of days, keeping to himself otherwise, finding a rhythm in the quiet that most people wouldn't have been comfortable with. He was comfortable with it. The cottage was small and spare, but it was his, and the winter had its own kind of company even when there was no one around. A bad storm was forecast for Tuesday into Wednesday, close to 2 feet expected. He'd settled in for the night with a book and something warm to drink, the blizzard already building outside the cottage window. And then the light flickered. Just once at first, the bare overhead bulb stuttering and recovering almost before he registered it. He went back to his book. Then it flickered again, longer, the amber light contracting, the room beginning to darken, the shadows in the corners deepening before the power dragged itself back. He told himself it was the wiring, the weather, both of which were true. He told himself it didn't mean anything. That was the last moment of the night that felt ordinary. About an hour later, he heard what sounded like a door slamming somewhere out on the property, muffled by distance and snow. He got up and looked out the window. The yard was empty, just open snow, blizzard still coming down, the dark mass of the lodge barely visible at the far left edge of his field of vision. But crossing the yard between the lodge and his cottage, cutting in a ruler straight line directly toward his front porch and then curving hard right toward the tree line, was a single set of deep footprints. Fresh. The sides still sharp, not yet softened by new snow. He stood at that frost-edged window and looked at them for a long time. He told himself it could be an animal, that the dark does strange things to distance and proportion, that a deer's path might look straight from a window at night. Some part of him already knew that wasn't right, because animals don't walk in straight lines, don't aim for specific doors, don't curve with the kind of purposeful precision that these tracks showed from the lodge all the way to his porch and then away toward the trees. He didn't call anyone. He had no cell signal that deep on the property most nights, and the only landline was in the lodge a few hundred yards across the open yard, through the storm, through the dark, in exactly the direction those footprints had come from. So instead he went back inside and turned every light in the cottage on every single one and sat down, and waited. He didn't go out to check. He told himself it could wait until morning. He sat with all the lights burning and listened to the storm and to everything beneath it, every sound the night made that wasn't wind and wasn't snow. Around 2 in the morning, the front door handle turned. It caught on the deadbolt, held, and turned again. Tyler didn't move. He was pressed flat against the wall beside the bedroom window, body rigid, face turned toward the glass but not looking out, listening. The cottage had every light on, the rooms washed in flat pale amber, all shadows eliminated except the black pressing against the window glass from outside. Through the bedroom door, barely visible in the gap beneath it, the faint impression of something, a shadow interrupting the thin line of light from the next room, the suggestion of weight on the other side. He didn't make a sound. He did not move from that wall. Whoever was at the door stood there for what felt like a full minute before the footsteps moved off the porch, around the side of the cottage, slow and even the whole way, following the perimeter of the building. He tracked each step by sound alone, pressing himself harder against the wall as the crunch of snow came level with the bedroom window, past it, and continued toward the back of the property. He listened to each step get closer, then pass, then fade. He stayed against the wall long after the sound was gone, in a cottage blazing with light at 2 a.m. in the middle of a blizzard on a property that was supposed to be empty, and counted down the hours until dawn in a silence so complete and so wrong that he understood it was no longer the comfortable kind. When the sky finally shifted, not light yet, just the faintest lift at the horizon from absolute dark to blue-gray, Tyler made himself move. He put on his coat, grabbed the flashlight, and stepped out into snow that was past his knees in places. The open yard felt enormous in a way it hadn't during the day, every shadow between the guest cabins deep enough to hold whatever it wanted to. He moved toward the lodge with his flashlight cutting a narrow amber cone across the surface of the snow in front of him, watching the dark spaces between the cabin overhangs on both sides, watching the tree lean, watching everywhere the light didn't reach. The cabins were all dark and silent, roof overhangs creating thick pools of shadow that the pre-dawn gray couldn't touch. The lodge itself in the mid-distance was still just a dark mass, details obscured. He was small against all of it, small figure, small light, large property, large dark, the sky barely beginning to differentiate itself from the tree line. He kept moving. He kept the flashlight beam low and ahead of him, not because it made him safer but because it was the only tool he had and he was going to use it. He found the back door of the lodge standing wide open, snow drifted almost a foot into the entryway, a deep crescent of white inside a building that was supposed to be locked. He stood in that doorway and aimed his flashlight down the main hallway and saw what the night had left behind. The back door hung open, outside air and blizzard gray spilling a cold rectangle of dawn light across the entryway floor where snow had drifted in deep. From that open doorway, a trail of muddy half-melted footprints ran the length of the main hallway, straight down the corridor toward the manager's office, the door of which stood open, its lock defeated. Inside, every drawer in the desk pulled out and left that way, papers scattered across the floor in the cold spill of light from the hallway, as if someone had been searching for something specific and left before they found it or left before they finished. Tyler stood in the hallway with his flashlight aimed at the open office doorway and understood, slowly, what the night had actually been. Whoever had been on this property had not come because of him. He had just been the second stop, the door they tried after the lodge, the light they'd already been watching from the tree line while they worked. The thing they wanted was in that office, or they believed it was. They'd walked through a 2-foot blizzard in the middle of the night to search a locked room for it, and they had stood outside his cottage door at 2 a.m. and tried the handle before moving on. When deputies finally arrived, they found the same trail leading away from the lodge out past the tree lean to the main road, where the tracks stopped at the shoulder, same as they always do in stories like this. No leads. Nothing obviously taken. No explanation from the property owners about what anyone could have wanted in that office. Tyler finished out the season because he needed the money. He never took another caretaker job again. He still thinks about those footprints sometimes, how even they were, how unhurried, like whoever made them had all the time in the world and knew exactly where they were going.